Hey guys, thanks for checking out this episode of Clinically Pressed. We have a special guest in Harrison Pollack. I just wanted to give you a heads up on this one. We referenced it a little bit in the episode, but Harrison was on to a new business venture, but it wasn't quite ready at the time. But we did want to throw a shout out to Uptown Cycle in the north side of the Crosse, which is getting ready to launch here soon. So please go ahead and check that out on their Facebook page or on Instagram, which we'll have all linked up in the show notes. This is a great episode, a lot of very good insight, and we hope you enjoy.
All right.
All right.
So I kick off then.
No, we'll start with this episode of Clinically Pressed. We have Harrison Pollack.
That's
that
correct.
right? Okay. He is a personal trainer in the La Crosse area, the whole Cooley region. We're here today to talk about some of his ideas and how he looks at his
All things exercise.
business and exercise and life, and yeah. So we'll start with that, the background of kind of how you got to where you are and the story.
All right. So, as Joel had mentioned, I am a personal trainer here in town, but that was not the original intent of my pursuit. So I'd gone through my undergraduate degree in kinesiology with a minor in nutrition with the intent to pursue physical therapy. So I got all the way up to, between my junior and my senior year, I had an opportunity to work in an inpatient physical therapy setting here in La Crosse, where I got to kind of see the operations of more of a nursing home, facility, so inpatient physical therapy, and also doing some outpatient at, it's called Sport and Spine in Winona. So I got to see both entities of physical therapy, and to keep a long story short, I found as though that the application of physical therapy to me was too reactive. I only saw a physical therapist growing up when I was hurt. I only went to the doctor when I was hurt. And so, the idea of, healthcare being more of a disease care, opportunity, for me, I wanted to take preventative actions, and knowing that, what exercise and everything has done for me as far as, educating myself as to, strengthening certain things to prevent myself from getting injured, when I worked in a nursing home especially, it was, 80-year-olds, you had to drag them to physical therapy. It's not like they had any willingness to go down there. So to somehow instill, lifestyle change earlier on in life is eventually, it was my dedication to physical therapy that ultimately deterred myself from physical therapy. So I steered away from that as soon as I graduated and got my certified personal trainer, which, you don't carry a lot of weight as a freshly graduated, personal trainer with a certification, you know what I mean? So it was my goal to kind of set out and make sure that there's, a different name for a personal trainer. So I just became a sponge and, started, and I came back to La Crosse because this is the community I grew up in. My mom and dad both, have worked here. My mom is a personal trainer. My mom is a physical therapist. My mom is a yoga therapist. My mom's a yoga trainer. She's done everything in exercise. And so, chip off the old block, as they say, is, and my dad is now a retired health teacher. So, I ended up in the realm of health, by trade of my parents. And so, surrounded by it, exactly. And I, in sports and stuff growing up, I broke 10 bones before the age of 18. So I was in and out of physical therapy and stuff like that. So I was just a fragile young kid. But it made me appreciate the idea of preventing an injury even more. So, but that's kind of where I stand right now. So.
Awesome. I like the idea of that. It seems like you can have a more broad-reaching effect.
It is.
On an early end of it rather than later on, just one at a time or something.
And that's how I view it, is every person who comes to me, whether they're, I've got a 15-year-old soccer player that is, recovering from a navicular fracture. We're going through the protocol to make sure that he's back and up and running. He can go back to the playing field. But I've also got, a 68-year-old woman who just wants to, protect her longevity. So, seeing both ends of that spectrum, an ACL is an ACL is an ACL is an ACL to a certain extent. And so for me, I wanted to, getting that interest across the board is what kind of intrigues me, because I get athletes, and then I get people who, the common person who just wants to move better on a day-to-day basis. So
at least they want to be there, though, as opposed to having to get drugged there too.
Exactly. And I was literally a rehab technician. I did chair transfers and transported people kicking and screaming down to therapy. So yeah,
I've got on our athletic training staff quite a bit on that. We cover all these spectrums, and prevention is supposedly one of our domains, but we don't do a whole lot with it. Yeah. You're not going to fight with the PTs for rehab because you're not going to win.
Yeah.
And then with chiropractic, and have some, not all, going into kind of some of that realm, but strength and conditioning / personal trainers could really be that floodgate of controlling who gets the prevention side of it. And a lot of them don't see that, especially in my setting in college. The whole goal of the strength and conditioning coach is bigger, faster, stronger in as short a time possible. It's like you're missing so many chances to not have them come downstairs because of what you do upstairs, and that's been a big phase shift we've had in the last couple of years. Last year. Yeah, absolutely. We were already just looking back at hip flexor and hamstring data, and we dropped our injury rate by 65%. And we focused on just basic things, and it made a huge difference. Study coming soon.
Right. Research coming soon.
Yep, we got a lot of things to go through first before we get that one set, but yes, that will be the plan. But yeah, I think that's to have that foresight, and we talked off the camera, but Tim Ferriss being the smart guy that he is, I know he's waiting for the health system to break, and whoever can be ahead of that curve. We've talked about it multiple times.
Well, one thing, it was brought up to in a I can't remember what podcast it is, but like if you go to the doctor with a resting blood glucose and you read 124, there's nothing the doctor can do for you until you hit 125. The ICD-10 coding for blood glucose, until you hit 125, they can do nothing besides make a mentioning as to maybe you should exercise more, maybe you should eat a little healthier. What are they going to do in their 15-minute time window to recommend to you everything that you should be doing to lower your resting blood glucose? But until you hit 125, they can do nothing for you. So it's just a harsh cutoff before the ICD-10 code kicks in, and your ability to be assisted is warranted. So.
And it's just left at that too. It's very broad to say exercise more and eat better. Like, what does that mean?
People need that specificity.
Well, then you hit 125, and it's here's a pill.
Yeah. Exactly.
This will fix you.
This will fix you. Don't worry. It's a nice little band-aid to the situation.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
Do you feel like the perception is changing for the better overall, with people wanting to be more preventative or on the front end?
Well, for me, anytime anytime anyone comes to me and they have, I already know that they made that initial step. And so when they come to me, I know that they want to make changes in their life. And so, being able to articulate, and I think that's one of the questions you have on here is, at one point, is someone ready to hear this? It takes a certain level of readiness to kind of say, the idea of losing weight will be, you have to, take that out of their forefront of their mind and kind of tone them back a little bit and talk about more lifestyle change. So I think that it's undergoing change. And so my biggest, market is the referrals that I get based on people who have experienced the type of training that I, instill upon people, which is, real. I mean, in truth, periodization in my training is, I don't train athletes, so periodization isn't even a thing that I technically apply to most of my clients. But once they start to feel the changes and see differences, they're becoming more. And I have people coming to my presentations and whatnot, talking about more nutritional application and and speaking of the word longevity more so than just weight loss and then cutting it off. So.
That's good.
I know we talked about we talk about training versus working out, and we get into talking more on a broad scale, but I thought you had an interesting point of you don't use periodization, but my guess is you're also not the workout guy where you have to leave sore in order to feel like something's gotten done. So I kind of had two questions. I want that, how you've gone about, getting that to people and them to understand that and getting to buy in, but then kind of on the second thing, you interview the client almost to see if they're a fit for what you do.
That usually happens in conversation.
Okay.
And I've had people, I've had people leave, sign up for training with me, and upon, after initiating training and stuff like that, they'll see how I approach things. They don't like it. They don't feel like it's fast enough.
Right.
And they don't feel like anything's happening fast enough. When we're taking, like, if you don't have good T-spine extension, you can't maintain a neutral spine through a motion, then we're going to have to go way back before we can even, like, go into a squat. And, they have the idea of what they come in with a preconceived notion of what exercise represents. And so, to me, fitness and exercise is a kind of a diluted moniker as to what, and each person has a different definition of to what that represents.
Right.
And so, it's my job to help them define what it is. And like I said, there's a lot of people that come to me that have, there's a better fit elsewhere. If you want to get your butt kicked and, and not have any regard to your, joints and musculature, then there are other places here. And I'm sorry that we couldn't make this happen. You know what I mean? And so all of my clients know that this is my protocol, and that it might not be happening as fast, but to really respect the process and know that the steps we're taking is going to help you in the long run. That's kind of they know that is my intentions are pure in that regard. So. And like I said, it does take a certain level of readiness, but the ability to apply. I try to educate my client.
Right.
I want to say, in this motion, you are working this muscle. I want you to seek that muscle out. If it would ignite red upon activation, I want you to turn it the brightest color red that you've ever done before and just fire it but be able to feel it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I want them to, so I use, it's called Essential Anatomy 5 by 3D4 Medical. It's on an iPad. And so you can highlight a muscle and its actions, and you can point to it and kind of showcase them where that muscle represents in the movement pattern and stuff like that. So I use visuals a lot with the clients as well.
I can see how education is huge.
Yeah.
To get that grand scheme, like the big goal.
Absolutely.
What's the, not a week from now or a month from now, but what's the big picture? I can see how education is huge.
And now I can have all of my my clients recite certain muscles and movements back to me. Horizontal abduction, or and certain things, and like hip extension. Certain things that I didn't learn till later in my into my education, like in college. They can recite it to me because I've taught them to use those terms. So yeah,
Unique.
Refreshing.
So do people who primarily just want to lose weight still struggle with some of those concepts of not understanding the importance of moving better and better technique? Again, they're just in it for the weight loss.
And so that's my job as a coach, to kind of re-explain the pursuit. And so people come to me and I said, you will lose weight, but it will take time, kind of thing. And so so if their movement patterns are dysfunctional, I talk about, like I said, I always say, picture yourself, so if someone's 20, I said, imagine 50-year-old you, if you want to be moving well at 50 years old, you'll just respect this for a second. Just let's slow it down and know that, that through this enhancement of movement will come, your ability to lose weight. So like through more range of motion, if you're able to activate the tissue through a greater range of motion, you're going to burn more calories and have a deeper activation. You're just going to be more muscle, or muscle spindle fiber recruitment and so on and so forth. So it's, through greater range of motion, you can accomplish more, and thereby will, be able to lose the weight that you want to, but just respect this initial portion. So yeah, so yeah, but like I said, we'll bat heads. Yeah. We'll bat. To where sometimes they just want to come in and like, I need a good workout today. I'm like, okay, but mobility for we have a my mobility program is 45 minutes before I do any sort of exercise. I have like a kind of pretty standardized mobility routine where I go through things, and there's things I'm lacking at still. But I go through that, and obviously there's a little bit expedited since I only have an hour, but they do stuff on their own for homework and stuff like that. So.
That's probably 45 minutes more than a lot of people
do it a week.
Guilty.
Yeah. Oh, it's
as much as I try and work on it.
Oh, I was a gargoyle though. Like for the longest part of my life, mobility wasn't even a thing. No. And so, but my dad was a gymnast, and so have you guys seen the gymnastics bodies?
Oh yeah.
Going around?
Yeah,
to me,
I feel terrible.
Those controlled calisthenics are like so intriguing to me. So I've really committed to that. I've actually subscribed to that, and this for me it's like
Talked about it multiple times.
it's insane.
I watched the video clips. I'm like, oh, they're gonna hurt themselves. Oh wait, they're doing it.
Yeah, and so like there's so many things to me that I'm like I'm exploring within the context. 'Cause I teach yoga as well.
Okay.
And so the yoga spectrum, my dream is that we live in a world where we can deadlift 2 times our body weight, but also do full thoracic extension, and like have good quality movement basis, and it's either one or the other. Right now you lift heavy or you do yoga kind of thing, and there's 2 separate ends of the spectrum, and I'm trying to hybridize that idea because I love lifting heavy. I mean, I think one of your questions here is what's your favorite? I love deadlifts. I love lifting really heavy deadlifts. That's like one of my favorite is to do that. But I also like to do yoga. So.
Do you have your clients deadlift?
All of them.
All of them?
Every single one of my clients has a strong posterior chain.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think it's so important.
Yeah.
That I think it's an underutilized, but when it is utilized, it can get kind of sketchy. Obviously not done properly.
Right.
Well, and for me, so I have a PVC pipe that I use, and I want people to recognize when they're in a neutral spine. And so, to proprioceptively be aware of, of a neutral spine. But I have, whether they're doing it with kettlebells, a trap bar, or like a barbell, they do a deadlift to some extent.
Right.
Every week.
For sure.
Every week with volume. So.
It's such an applicable movement. I mean, who doesn't pick crap up off the floor?
Exactly. And so, and they get excited because, they start progressing through the movement. Like, I had a pageant, she's 14 years old, weighs all of 125 pounds, and I had her deadlifting her body weight, much to her surprise, and after like a couple months.
Right.
I pointed that to the kettlebell on the first day. I'm like, you're gonna lift that and just wait, and kind of thing. And she kind of smiled and like batted it away. And then when she did it, I'm like, told you. So.
Do you like the gymnastics bodies program?
I do. I'm fresh into it. I've been doing my own little you guys follow Kelly Starrett and his when I read Becoming a Supple Leopard, my mind was just my entire training protocol was revamped.
Oh, for sure.
And so I've taken a lot of tidbits from him, but the mobility sector of his books, there's Ready to Run and Desk Bound, which I'm working through right now too. Yeah. And so ever since reading those, I've completely reframed my mindset as to, at first, when I first started training, I'll admit that I was about making that person sore and complain about it for the next 3 days. But every 6 months, you realize how bad of a personal trainer you were 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's a
good
constant
thing.
progression. Yeah. So.
You had a story when you were talking about being able to deadlift huge and then do the yogi thing. I watched some interview with him, and he and his wife were on vacation, and they went to a yoga class, and she's like, you need to go in there and just make all these people like go holy crap, because he's a big dude.
Yeah.
But he was so mobile, he was going in there and just rocking it out, and apparently the class was just like, oh.
How did you do
Oh,
that?
yeah.
That was the first thing I thought of too. I was like, he's that person that's trying to bridge the
Yeah.
gap between
Oh, he is. Yeah, 'cause
moving well and
He got some meat on his bones, but he can move so well.
Right.
And I think that is more gratifying than anything else. If you see someone who is fluid in their movements, like to me, that'll turn heads. It's like a Cirque du Soleil kind of moment where like, how did they get in that position?
How did that big?
Yeah, how did that exactly?
Not only that, I think those 2 attributes are more important for the longevity's sake than
Yes.
what your weight or body composition is. If you can move well and you're strong, you can maintain your autonomy late in life. That's going to go far,
Oh man,
far
You
more
get
than what
into
your
the
weight
full
is,
thing.
what your BMI is, even
Totally
body
agree.
composition.
See that in older patients for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was funny because my mom has been a yoga instructor, yoga therapist for 15 plus years, and for the first part of my, even when I started lifting, working out, she was the first one that stuck me in the gym, because when I went to high school, I wasn't even 100 pounds yet. I was tiny. And so she finally, when I started hitting puberty, she said, try these exercises. And then I started, wanting to lift heavy, you know what I mean? And I was like, yoga's for girls. That's for girls.
I didn't even know what yoga was in high school.
Oh, and so now it's such a, specifically yoga, not so much, but the mobility sector of the yoga practice is where I find myself to be kind of cross-hatching between like the gymnastics bodies, yoga, like I said, controlled calisthenics is to me super intriguing. So
That's one thing I think CrossFit's brought to the fitness world is the importance of mobility and active recovery kind of training.
Starrett was big on getting in on that, or being a guy that could do the lift, and then also sit there and be like, but you need to do this.
Yeah. I would love to just spend a day in the gym with him.
Oh, yeah,
Pointing out all my weaknesses.
Oh boy.
Oh, yeah, here's where you're tight here. You need to work on that.
Yeah, it's you know.
And his background as a physical therapist throws just street cred to the whole thing. Not
Yeah.
that you need it, but
You can do everything.
But that's that weight that you need to like establish your initial rapport. You know what I mean? It's he's got a doctorate in physical therapy, and you know, but he's taken his savvy and applied it to exercise directly, specifically CrossFit. And if you go to the West Coast, which I'm sure you've experienced, the West Coast is leaps and bounds ahead of us as far as stressing the importance of the mobility sector within the realm of CrossFit, because the early stages of CrossFit were job security for chiropractors and physical therapists, and that was it. And then they said, oh, we should probably change before we ruin the name of CrossFit. Kind of thing. So, yeah.
But it's nice when it's worked into the program. If they see it in the program, like, okay, yeah, they can feel better about doing it, I think, instead of like having it be an extra thing, and then it kind of gets left out, like some of the things you guys have implemented within, the SPC at UWL. I think if it's already in there.
yeah, it's been funny because the more I watch, we've gone along the Exos program where it's building, superset, but building in mobility stuff, and it's been funny to just as I keep learning more about what they do. It's like, oh, well, that's a yoga pose that I just tried the other week, but we just threw it into their movement prep, and the guys don't know what they're doing; they're just doing what they're told. And so I think that's been our biggest thing in the injury reduction. But yeah, it's funny like how the guy that created that whole thing, he did the same thing. He took what he liked from every different place and just put it into a system.
Yep.
And you don't even know that you're doing yoga poses until you go to a yoga class and you're like, oh my god, I was just doing that when I was working out. Like, what's happening? Yeah. It's very funny how
disguise it. You don't have to. You call it yoga, and people will kind of, maybe it might bat it away or something like that. But if you do it if a strength coach prescribes it, it's like, oh yeah, I dig that. I can roll with it. I should probably do that. So yeah. It depends on who you're hearing it from. So absolutely.
yeah. Very true.
So,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to go kind of down these questions. So,
Sure.
Any, what are some of the biggest training faults or errors that you commonly see?
From a client standpoint,
Yeah.
that I see.
Yep.
And I want to follow up because I want to know what you see in like personal trainers as well, like the most common areas. So
Yeah.
all of the above,
So, and other personal trainers and
what you see in your clients.
So, I always go back to the term proprioceptive awareness. I use mirrors so people can see when things are, when their knees falling valgus or anything like that, or like, so like for me, when I always like the neutral spine is such a big, sector for me. So, so that I would say between those two, probably the knee valgus and the inability to, I'm going to go deeper here. So thoracic spine movement, a rotation extension specifically, but then ability to maintain a neutral spine, and then, like I said, the knee valgus, and then like I just see like tight hips everywhere I go, and so whether and that's why the book Desk Bound to me is so intriguing, because it he gives good verbiage as far as how to articulate that to an individual, why it's important to even if you're standing you're still stationary kind of thing. So is my mindset, but I've really brought a specific focus to spinal health as of lately, and so I know my T-spine has a lot of work. Like my extension, my rotation's much better, but I've been really working on my extension, and so I see that in a lot of other people too, especially, given the fact that, a lot of our operating capacity as human beings is done in front of us, whether we're driving or at a desk or, doing laundry or doing dishes, everything is done in front of us. So we've got that upper cross syndrome, idea where it's closed shoulder. And so reversing that mentality or reversing that, that posture to every extent that I can. So, but as far as trainers go, and it was for movements, you said specifically. So I work out solely for the reason to escape. I work out at the YMCA.
I like this story.
Yeah.
I was actually hoping you were
Yeah. So I work out at the YMCA just so I am a bystander and not you can't come to me for questioning. So my hour to 2 hours at the YMCA is I am I'm in my headphones and I'm doing my workout. And so, but obviously I've kind of got that ever wandering eye that's kind of paying attention to my periphery. And so the story that Joel's referring to is I see the personal trainers and I silently judge, I'll be honest. And so I watch this, and the guy walks into the gym and they have a little, conversation at the front desk, and you can kind of see emotion over like, all right, let's go get our our workout started. So they go over to the squat rack and go right into loaded overhead squats.
Right into it.
Nothing preceded it. Nothing preceded it. And I'm watching this guy, and his low back. I'm just waiting for just to crush under the weight of the because you can tell he has no lat mobility, and he's it's dumping into the low. And I'm watching this, and I'm like sweating for him. Because so I'll see the trainers will adhere to the demands of their client. If the client wants to and so they lose the control based upon what the client has requested, and they think that they have to the client wants to be sore, I want to make him sore. It's your job as a practitioner to take a step back and say no. But at the same time, it's like they might not know any better, and so and I'm hoping that with this idea of discussion and infiltrating the community of the Crosse, and that people will start to recognize that there's more to exercise than the soreness factor. And so just because you're not sore doesn't mean you didn't get a good workout in. And so like you said, and every once in a while I'll seek out and just do like an insane German volume training 10 by 10 and, squat and just ruin my legs. But it depends on what my stress level is for the day. But so the biggest mistake that I tend to see is trainers not taking a step back and being a professional, stopping the requests of the client, and just because they're not happy, you have to explain to them why this is the right protocol. So.
At the expense of their morals or values.
Yeah.
There's so much out there. Somebody just forwarded me I'd seen it, but it was talking about the unregulated world of strength and conditioning coaches. And it was referencing what happened out at Oregon. Their new head coach, new strength coach. Well, the strength coach only needed to take I think it said 27-hour. It's the certification through Track and Field Coaches Association, college level, NCAA. But even with that, it's the same thing kind of with the NSCA and the CSCS. You're supposed to have something related to it, but I feel like in terms of your degree, you know more of the details. But then it's just
to be a college level strength conditioning coach, you just need a certification.
Right. Well, and it's one of two, especially at Division I. It's one of two.
They prefer it, but it's not.
No, it's not the rule.
No, because the guy at Oregon.
But he had the tracking, but that's one that they've approved.
No, the two that they're leaning towards are the
CSCS
and the CSCCA are the two that they prefer.
Anywho, basically the conversation was, we're trusting these people with these student athletes, but this is legitimately all they had. Because I know when I was at a former university, the head strength coach, because he was the boy of the guy of the head coach, he didn't have a certification at all. He's just going off of being for lack of a better word, a meathead, and it just, you're right, and it's just scary, and that's where I think you've made such huge strides in what you've done, because I feel, in my mind, I'm being a little judgy here too, but a lot of personal trainers, you go and you find whatever certification you want to get, you spend the money, you take the test. Some of the tests you can take as many times as you need to until you pass it. Now all of a sudden I'm a personal trainer. And then it's almost scary to a degree, but I don't know how it's your.
This is if I'll use your word, judgy. But for me, like I said, the pursuit of mastery. And if you ever listen to Barbell Shrug, that pursuit of mastery, what's compelling within our field is the fact that you'll never actually be, the pursuit of mastery is what's compelling, because you'll never be, you open up one hormone, ghrelin, that will lead you to a whole separate realm of things. So every single time you open a little door, it opens up to you a whole labyrinth of, you'll never know it all. And to me, that's so compelling. And so, but there are people that, they get their certification, they're a fitness professional. I don't need to learn anymore. I'll take what I know, start applying it, and I am the fitness professional. And, in conversations, I've referred to them before as dollar store personal trainers, because their worth is, their certification, and they've never tried to pursue more. And they've never been intrigued to pursue more. And the fitness spectrum is ever evolving. And if you're not up to date with those things, then you're behind. So, so for me, it's that evolution. You have to be right in track with it. So and I hope that people see that as eventually, to have like kind of, but that's kind of the purpose of the continuing education credits. But whether or not they, look to apply that, or if they just like breeze through it and then move on and go back to their old ways, whatever.
For the NSCA, I think you can get half your credits just by getting re-upped in CPR and everything like that, where you're not necessarily learning a whole lot. Yes, you're learning CPR. It's very important. I just feel like that should be like flat requirement. Like that's not continuing it. That's like just you should just do that.
That's a portion of
over time, though, I think Cream's going to kind of rise to the top there. Like you said, you get some referrals and you're going to continue to succeed, whereas those other ones, I don't think it's sustainable that way over the long term.
Social media into it. Now you got a whole other animal. But yes, no, I agree.
Actually, I was sat down with Jordan last night, and my eventual hope is that similar to like an athletic trainer or anything like that, that there's a national accredited exam. Like they're like, so that because I work hand in hand with I get doctors referrals, and I get I work with Diane, who's a physical therapist, and we see eye to eye with all of our so to have that sort of like trifecta between healthcare professionals, physical therapists, and like personal trainers to somehow eventually sneak our way into the healthcare system towards a nationally accredited exam that you need, like it's going to be pretty rigorous. Like I'd rather like weed out the bad with a really intense application style exam, and then really give the merit to personal trainers that have decided to grow with the industry. So
It'd be interesting if they could ever go back to practical. I know for like the athletic training one, it used to be like you went into a place, you took the written test, but then you had a practical. Like you had to physically demonstrate you knew what you were doing. And they've gotten rid of that. I'm sure it was a cost thing or something like that. I don't know what it is now, but we had like scenarios where you had to like pick what you wanted to do, and that took you down this route, and kind of so they tried to make it somewhat practical. But man, if you had to do that for like strength and conditioning, and like demonstrate and cue like things that like you're trying to trick them, but you're not really trying to trick them, because they should be able to pick on those things, it could be really huge and interesting.
It'd be a great idea. I don't know how you get all the organizations to agree on the same.
You wouldn't, because it's too easy to make money now,
right?
Which unfortunately is what drives so much of it.
It's everything's got to be monetized to a certain extent, which is the downfall of a lot of, not just this industry, everything. So it's nuts.
Anybody else that you consider to be leaders or follow closely? You mentioned Surratt.
So in the realm of the fitness industry, I follow Eric Crosse very, very closely. His knowledge on the shoulder is, something to aspire towards. Unreal. He's just got this unbelievable, savvy. And then like kind of a common hustle, Mike Reinhold. He's got some good stuff as well. And then I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. So Kelly Starrett's done some stuff with Jill Miller. You ever heard of The Role Model?
She's got some really interesting.
So she The Role Model. I have that one if you want to do. Yeah, so it's and she's got some really good insight. Actually, the guys at Barbell Shrug just did an interview with her. She has some really cool insight.
Yeah. It's like an hour class of like.
She like the
tissue release.
Vegas,
very
Vegas
big in yoga.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's literally her class, and just the way she's approached it. Because her whole thing is, well, if you don't like it, don't come. But this is what we're gonna do, and she's just built herself up. Yeah, it's an interesting episode.
Yeah, I thought that she had some really good insight as to when she talks about because I do the suboccipital release with my lacrosse balls, and and it opens up a whole new realm of rotation once you get the full release, and it's just so when she was talking about that, I was like, oh, right on. I'm kind of in the right category, so yeah, so I would say. I would say, Kelly Starrett, hangs out at the top, and I've got a bunch of other people that I follow kind of down that line. And those are more the movements, but as far as like business and stuff like that, like I really, Tim Ferriss is, right near the top of my list. So as far as, I know that guy. What a guy. Great guy. Keeps me, and I've listened to a lot of his stuff just over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because you can take little nuggets from every single one of his and just keep pulling from it. So
Starting to I'm trying to finish 2 other books so I can start the Tool of Titans and just start bouncing around in that one. Have you read that at all?
So one of my buddies put it pretty perfectly the other day. It says I don't know how PC do I have to be on this podcast. It says shit read. So he interviews people, and so he's got it, and they're like 3 pages. And so as he sits down on the toilet, he reads one person because it's 700 pages. It's a huge undertaking, and so it's really intriguing. The first part is the health and wellness one. And so, even if you were to delve into the realm of the ketosis, a lot of them talk about the effects of ketosis and fasting and stuff like that. Like, I had to stop after they mentioned it too many, because I was like, all right, I got to look more into this. And I bought some exogenous ketones and did a couple day fast to just test it out. And it's super interesting because they speak so highly of it, but it opens up all these other doors of potential benefits of different, in cold treatment and heat and cold treatments and the effects of that on recovery. And so it's just nuts. And so I have to take a step, and it's good because you read 3 pages, you're like, I'm gonna think on that for about 4 days.
Yeah.
I really had to sit back and just digest that for 4 days.
His 4-hour body did that for me. I take notes out of everything. I highlight and I'd write it down on a note card, so I go back and then I'll put it in and organize all the stuff. Complete nerd type thing, but you just I took so many notes out of it because it was this little thing. I never thought of that before, and then like you said, it's just a rabbit hole of you don't know where to stop after you start reading about some of it. It's just what is? Because then it's oh well, he referenced this. Well, I should go read that book, and then you're 3 books in one direction, and you don't know when to turn back because.
My book, on Amazon.com, I'm ready to pull the trigger on 16 different books that have been mentioned in Tools of Titans. Yeah. I've had to really resort to audiobooks just because then I don't have to sit down and read it. So I'm just in my commutes and stuff like that. I can apply myself in that fashion. So
I go through way more audio than actual reading.
Absolutely.
Time-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing you're a 10-minute commute. That's a solid 2 chapters potentially. So. That's huge. Yeah.
I'm up to 1.75 now with my speed. I can actually understand it.
I've thought about speeding up podcasts. I just don't know if I have the capacity to focus enough to.
I wouldn't be able to do that.
I don't know that
I'm play pause, the play pause kind of guy where I'll take if they mention a concept, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna let that marinate for a little bit. That was good. Just let that sink in.
That's why I like reading.
Yeah.
Just because you could reread it a couple times.
Yeah. I hit the back 30 seconds quite a bit.
Yeah, I've for me it's if you ever see a lot of the books that I read, I've absolutely tortured them with highlighters and pens. Yeah, I've absolutely they're an abomination to the point where I could never resell them because I've marked them up so bad as far as what I've written little asterisk, highlighter, remember this statement kind of thing. So. And that's usually how I approach books. Same thing, it's because Kelly Starrett's books are textbooks. So I've got those marked and flagged to oblivion. So that's pretty nuts.
Get your money's worth out of them.
Oh yeah, best dollars I've ever spent right there.
That's where I struggle with audiobooks and Kindle because I really want the library.
Oh yeah,
that is that's yeah.
I like the hard. I'm old fashioned.
Yeah, I've actually started a thing on Amazon. This is how much of a nerd I am. If I read it on Kindle, but I really liked it, or I heard it in an audiobook, I have I've already read it, but I want to have the physical copy. So I'll go back and look if I need to just see if I can buy it for 50 cents and throw it on an order. Yeah.
That's not nerd. That's
first world problems.
Yeah. That's a real human.
It's not really stressing me out, but that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to my books.
Yeah. To next?
I don't know. Any topics you want to talk about or cover that are
trying to resort back to our kind of our prompt here, and I don't know if there's anything mixed that you want to go.
Yeah, just throwing on there just fitness myths that you see that you constantly have to break. We talk a lot on just the blog stuff that we do. Cardio isn't your best route to fat loss. That is one that just seems to be.
What?
I know. Sorry to bust your bubble there. Or the scale doesn't lie. Well, it can. In So those are a couple of like big ones, but
So you're talking more in the realm of fitness than anything?
or whatever nutrition, whatever you
I always have to bat it back to how the perception of fat is bad. I always have to go back. I have to go back to that every single. Eating fat. Yeah, everyone thinks oh, that person's fat. They must eat too much fat, kind of thing. And so the body type labeling to coincide with the name of the macronutrients is viewed as bad. And so explaining to people that in a low fat item versus the regular fat item, the only thing that's differentiating the two is the amount of sugar, and sugar is going to do more for you. So I always have to combat that because they're getting low fat yogurt, low fat, so on and so forth. And so I'll tell them how much fat I eat on a day-to-day basis, and it's insane. It's like 50-60% of my diet, depending on the day, is fat. It's just I eat just a ton of fat, and I've seen the effects. In college I ate like a college kid. It was pasta and Hot Pockets. I couldn't afford.
That is our first reference to Hot Pockets on this. I'm kind of impressed that it took this long.
Start bringing it up more.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until after college I was like, oh, I should probably start practicing what I preach. And I saw and I did 3 years ago. I wanted to do like a carb depletion cycle like you would do for leading up to a show, and I got down to like 2.3% body fat or something like that. So it was fun to see your body change, but obviously. Oh yeah, but it was but it was nuts because I was the most irritable person in the entire So, but I mean, just to see.
I was told that when I lost a bunch of weight one time.
Irritable.
You're not fun to be around.
Yeah.
I'm great. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Jerk.
What do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, and now that I've kind of gotten more into the realm of like sustaining is like the amount of carbs that I eat per day. And the carb thing. How everyone views carbs as breads, pastas, and stuff like that. Explaining to them a good carb, bad carb. So not necessarily a myth, but like, they say, I guess carbs are bad. People will say carbs are bad, ubiquitously. That's carbs are bad. So batting that down and saying fats are bad and then batting that down. So, but yeah, the cardio thing too, because, I am really, really cynical when it comes to running. Just really, really cynical because I've incurred, so many people who have, just ruined themselves with the sport. And I'll do like, the running analysis. And, if I pick out the pronation of their ankle joint, I'm like, we have to fix that before you ever start running again kind of thing. And then there's the whole, like, corrective exercise protocol to correct that from the heel all the way up to the hips. You know what I mean? So.
Hogan Galbraith has said that if he were to have anybody do any movement and injure them, guarantee they're going to be injured, he'd just have them run. And yeah, pretty much.
We talk about it a lot, treating it as a skill. It's not some like innate quality we just all have.
Yeah.
Especially with the way that we've changed our day-to-day biomechanics with shoes and heels.
It should be an innate
It
movement.
should, yeah.
It probably was at one point.
I think Starrett says it's like the first grade when he starts noticing it, because then all of a sudden kids have thick-heeled shoes, so they lose the ability.
Those Hoka shoes, the mattress shoes that kill me. Like I'm like, there's.
Supposedly,
Yeah.
there's zero drop, even though you're running on a mattress. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
First grade too, they also go from moving their entire lives to flopping, sitting down most of the day.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting point. If you read a Desk Bound, they talk about our educate. Yeah. Because the book is dedicated to a school. I can't remember where it is, but it's an all stand-up school. There's no chairs in the school. That's what this book is dedicated to. This person who created the first all standing school. There's no chairs in the entire school. Can't remember where it is.
They had talked about doing that, like to stand up desk, but then it's got like a sway bar on the bottom, so the kid can sit there and like fidget.
Yep.
And there's claims of like reducing ADD and stuff like that, because you're allowing them to get that random energy out, and so it's not manifesting in somewhere else. So that's been interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, I've said it over and over again. If someone comes to me, they're like, I want to run a half marathon. I'm like, let's sit down. Let's talk about this. Let's like, why? Because I want to. Why? Like, I'm like that little kid who just is persistently asking why. Like, and then I'll give them my feedback as to what I perceived, running to do to the human body. And like, you think of like the New Year's resolution wave, the immediate, a lot of people when they run, it feels like they're dying. So it must be good for me. I must be burning calories. and with no like zero mindfulness. They go about these movements with like reckless abandon, and just because they feel like they're dying, it must be hard, so I must be burning calories, so that must be exercise. And so, and again, there's that diluted definition of what exercise represents is like dying. You know what I mean? Like,
That's where you feel so bad for people that can't adhere to their programs and
Yeah.
they fall off the wagon. It's like, because you did it the wrong way. No wonder you were miserable and couldn't.
that was I write for Seven Magazine, and that was my biggest thing. Is like for the New Year's, it's like start slow. Like if you do it all at once, you're gonna fail. Like guaranteed. If you change your diet, you change your exercise, you change your sleep, your sleep and stuff like that, you're gonna fail. So
Willpower and decision making, they're finite. You don't have the ability to have ultimate willpower all day, every day. Like you have to pick and choose where it comes from. So, like you're saying, you make a million changes, 3 of them are going to stick.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
well, if you guys ever read the book Power of Habit, that's a pretty good one. Shoot, I can't even think of the author right now, but it's called The Power of Habit. And that one's really good too. And it's just that would be for like the common person who's looking to make changes in their life, and what capacity of our day-to-day life is. If we had to think about every single thing that we did, we wouldn't be able to operate as a species because we would be constantly engaged. So a large amount of is, and it talks about ingraining habits within your prefrontal cortex and stuff like that. So it gets pretty in depth, but it's pretty interesting as far as recognizing what it means to make a habit within your day-to-day routine. So. It's pretty interesting.
I like the science. It's cool. So, with your 50 to 60% of your calories being fat, what are your favorite go-to sources for meeting that?
Yeah, that's actually a great question.
That's so I eat coconut oil like there's no tomorrow. I've got organic butter that I eat, and then I do peanut butter. Like so, if I have any carbs during the day, like a piece of bread or anything like that, ultimately it's a vehicle for my peanut butter, and I'll put like a 1/4-inch lather on top of there and just and pound that. Otherwise,
I'm sure some people will hear that and be like, "Perfect.
Yeah.
This is my guy. He's telling me I can eat peanut butter."
And Jordan actually did a pretty good write-up about that the other day, and how they've marketed peanut butter to be a good source of protein when it's just fat. Peanut butter is just fat with a little bit of protein sprinkled on there. And avocados and stuff like avocados are I eat at least 2 avocados a day, pretty much every day. So cashews, pistachios. I've got like a healthy nut diet, so a lot of it. And so calorically speaking, you'd see the calories that I consume in that realm to be I'm between 4,000 and 5,000 calories a day, depending on what day it is and stuff like that. If I have a really hard workout, closer to 5,000 calories. So.
And for all the people, because we don't have this on video, he is lean. He is not just saying that, and he's just monster of a person. He is very fit.
He just said he had at one point 2 point something percent.
Yeah, he hasn't fallen off the wagon. We'll put it that way.
If you don't want me to be hangry, I hover around 7 to 8%. So that's kind of where my happy place is. So that's about where I like to hover, and that's, like I said, that's without me becoming irritable. So, and make sure I have caffeine in me as well. Any other? I guess I have to check out my computer again there.
I feel like we kind of ran through all the main topics, unless anybody else has got something to cover. Since we're diving into nutrition, and you were talking about fat, do you do or recommend, like, when it comes to supplementation? Is it protein powder for people that might struggle to get their protein in, or like anything else that you would suggest, for people as your kind of this full encompassing thing?
So there's a really cool sticker I got from the food co-op here, and my ultimate piece of advice is eat real food. I mean, to most of I've essentially cut out most supplementation, but for people who are struggling to get in, then I have them, and some people will want like a vegan protein, which is like a pea protein or something like that. So if they're really struggling to get their protein intake, then I'll recommend a different. So I use a couple different types of protein powders. So if they're wanting whey, I use Syntha 6. It's just off of bodybuilding.com, and I was talking to Jordan last night. We sat down for a beer and ended up talking for 3 hours. Like, it was just,
Sounds about right.
so and to me, that proprietary blend that sneaks its way into so many different supplements. It's kind of hard to avoid, but there's a couple good pea proteins out there that are pretty good if you're looking for a vegetarian option and whatnot. But I think protein powders, fish oils, and those are pretty much the only two that I recommend as far on a regular basis. I don't do heavy recommendations for supplementation. Like I said, for most situations, I just try to say eat real food with a really so for my business travelers and stuff like that. I try to get them to to make healthy decisions on the go, especially when their job is to entertain other constituents. So it's always tough. So. But in truth, I try not to recommend too many supplementations unless they're really, 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 really struggling. So I try to teach them or more educate them in their the Sunday ritual. You guys do meal prep on Sundays or anything like that?
Haven't started working on that or way towards it as we were.
So I do this. Yeah, I do this massive meal prep on whether it be tuna steaks. I've got a CSA I've got a quarter cow in my freezer, so grass-fed beef. I've got a local farmer that I get my eggs and chickens from, so I've got a huge freezer full of goodies. But I do like meal prep on Sundays where I literally have my entire partitioned out to day by day, which is just you ever seen those 6-pack fitness bags kind of thing? So I've got the 6 one that's got the 6 compartments, and I eat that every day. So my fridge is stupid packed on Sunday. It's kind of annoying, but it's fun for me because I dabble with different recipes and stuff like that. It's sometimes hard to make healthy food taste good. So I've had to find different ways to do so, and I've really cut out dairy.
But when you can slather
Peanut butter on it.
peanut butter or that organic butter you've been talking about, when you can put that on it, that makes
Hummus. I forgot hummus. I eat hummus like there's no tomorrow. I eat a ton of hummus. So that would be another realm that I did sneak into. Garbanzo beans, chickpeas, whatever. So yeah, absolutely.
Make your own, or buy it?
Depends on my time, whatever time constraints. It kind of. And then I just get caught up with sodium content more than anything. So, but I'm usually under the 2,300 milligrams per day to the best of my ability. So don't get too bloated. Absolutely.
going to the final ones.
Kind of hit the book recommendations.
He's still got his other one sitting. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I've got a couple of passages.
Yeah. Let's go with the book recommendation / words of wisdom.
I'm going to read a passage from "Start with Why" by Simon Sinek, and the subtext is how great leaders inspire everyone to take action. And so on page 65, he talks about the name of the chapter is Clarity, Discipline, and Consistency. And so the paragraph is called Clarity of Why. It says, it all starts with clarity. You have to know why you do what you do. If people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So it follows that if you don't know why you do what you do, how will anyone else? And I kind of go along the lines of having that being the foundation of how, because I'm very passionate about my work. And so why I do it is I ultimately want to see my clients succeed, and so I think that people can sense that and see the good that, my intentions are to make them, flourish as an individual so that they're moving well, years and years down the road. So I like that little nugget of there. Otherwise, I've got the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. And there's a small passage on page 137. It says, first, know the science. Each of the basic requirements of deliberate practice is unremarkable. A clearly defined stretch goal, full concentration and effort, immediate and informative feedback, repetition with reflection and refinement. So I try to apply that with, that's why when I was talking about the podcast, I stop it and I'm like, I revel in it for a second. I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. I'm gonna really just digest that for a second.
Sure.
So
Let it sink in.
yeah, let's sink in.
I feel like it just comes in, and then I have to hear it 3 other ways, and then it finally sticks.
Well, what I'll end up doing is I'll listen to a podcast. I'll listen to it 3 times before I move on to another podcast. So I listen to it once, and I just listen to it all the way through. I listen to it another time, and I have a notebook near me, and then I'll give it a week break after digesting the notes that I took, and I listen to it again, and then listen to it based upon the interpretation, and so see if anything, I take any other notes. If you watch a movie like 10 years later, you'll pick up on different things.
Sure.
Same concept I kind of apply to a podcast, and I'll listen to it later, and it's like, oh, I missed that. Like, that's a good point. So
That makes sense. I like that.
so.
Probably own that material by the third time too.
That's what, and it's funny because I don't know if you ever leave a podcast and there's so much that you could have taken from that for me, even a book, it's like, I'll read all the books that I have again at some point in time, but there's so much to be extracted from that hour presentation or whatever that I have to listen to it more than once. And so, and I'm extremely OCD like that, where if there's anything left untouched, I feel like I shorted myself the experience of the podcast or the book or whatever it is. So, yeah.
Get more out of it then.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
thorough.
And I try to be, and podcasting was something I just, started, maybe a year and a half ago, and I just fell in love. I'm like, I don't even know what's on the radio anymore. I think this is part of adulting. I'm not sure what, but I couldn't tell you who the most popular artists are right now, what the most popular songs are, because I have, podcasts on in my podcast and or NPR on in my car. So that's it.
There you go.
Makes you mad there's not more time in the day to listen to them all.
Oh, absolutely.
That's my problem. My queue list is getting too long for.
It gets longer before it gets
See,
shorter.
that's one problem I have because I really want to see all those red circles down to 0, and I've got 12 that I'm trying to listen to, and I was like, there's just not enough hours in the day to get through all this.
It's like you got to make excuses to get. I'm gonna go take the dogs for a walk just so I can listen to a podcast.
That's one of my best ones. It's that was a really long walk. Yeah, just got dog wanted to keep going.
Right. He was feeling it.
Yeah, there you go.
Very nice. What's the most influential purchase for under $100, whether it's maybe fitness related or otherwise?
So when I first embarked on my mobility routine, I would just forget. I would just space it. I wouldn't think of it. So, and that was kind of in the beginning stages of my yoga practice. So I bought, in the same day, 2 practice lacrosse balls, a 6-foot piece of PVC pipe, and a yoga mat. And I leave it out in the same place, and I walk by it every single day. So it's a blatant notification. You have to do that. Yeah. So, and now it's it's part of my day-to-day routine. So the yoga mat, it's just a cheap one at first. So I've upgraded since then. But the yoga mat, I leave it all the time. The PVC pipe is laying on the length of the yoga mat for mostly shoulder rotation, overhead movements and stuff like that. And then the balls to get my back and like suboccipital area. So and those in total, I think it was like $60. And I use those every single day. So that's my little mobility kit. And it has other entities as well that I use, but those are the main ones. And so the yoga mat was definitely, so I go through my routine has refined itself over time, but I started out with a really basic mobility routine. My hips were tight, I had no T-spine rotation and stuff like that. So I just, I made it a point to start for 15 minutes, and it's now evolved to 45, sometimes an hour, depending on what my body's feeling like that day.
Great after that, though.
Oh, I feel like a Gumby. It's great. I love it.
Be a good insight.
Yeah, we'll hit you up for that. Yeah.
Oh, the before and afters is crazy. As I, if I go through my initial range of motion, go through the whole thing, I do like a check and recheck kind of thing, and I go back to the same movement pattern, and it's just, for me to, if you'd have seen me 2 years ago to try to touch my toes, you would have laughed openly, and I would have accepted it as, like I said, I was a gargoyle, I was made of stone. I had no fluidity to my movement at all. If you ever heard of Ido Portal?
Yeah, I love watching him.
Unreal. Like I can watch his stuff all day and just, and that's kind of what led me to the gymnastics bodies and stuff like that, because Ido Portal is just an amazing movement practitioner. So I aspire to be like him, and he's just so fluid in all things, but strong.
Yeah.
So
He's been interviewed a couple times on London Reel.
Yep.
So if you haven't checked those out, they're worth checking out. What is something that you believe that others may not? And it doesn't have to be health and fitness. It could be whatever you want it to be.
I think I referred to it earlier today, and I believe in a world where people can deadlift 2 times their body weight, but also have fluid movement capabilities. Like being able to hold like a deep squat is a resting pose, having mobility in their hips and stuff like that. And I try to get all of my clients to do that, given that the articulation of their knees is still intact. But there's certain movements that I your best. So like I want people to lift heavy and move fluidly. A combination of those two, and there's usually, unfortunately, a disconnect between those two. So, if you lift really heavy, you're pretty locked into that, you have adhesion upon adhesion upon adhesion of broken up muscle tissue to where you can't move fluidly, or you just do yoga and your strength capacity isn't what it could potentially be. And with that, I'm going to botch it. There's that quote by Socrates. It's a shame for a man to grow old without having ever seen the beauty or the strength and beauty that his body can achieve, or something like that. Have you ever heard that one before? I'm going to look it up. I had it pulled up. It's a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable.
Okay. Yeah, I know.
And I use that as kind of I hold that to a high regard because, I want to see people's bodies evolve. I want to see my body evolve.
Sure.
I use that kind of interchangeably.
I like that quote. Even applied to like just applying themselves to whatever they're doing, like reaching their full potential. Because I feel like not everybody does at all.
Oh yeah.
And it would be good if people did.
That's that readiness too, because there's people are extremely good at making excuses, and I'm kind of an extreme cynic, and people are crutching on their ancestry and their bad genetics to say that they can't lose weight. And I'm really a cynic to kind of say, you just haven't applied yourself yet. There's things that you can do to counteract whatever genetic downfall that you feel like has corrupted you. So I try to counteract that mindset.
For sure. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of prioritizing their problems. Like, well, you want your problem to be being overweight or you can't move. That's one option. Or you can have your problems be getting your ass kicked in the gym for an hour. Yeah. But then maybe you won't have the other problem.
Pick and choose, yeah. I wrote a piece for 7 Magazine for February and kind of designed it around Valentine's, and so it was entitled "Love Yourself." And anytime that someone says to me, "I don't have enough time," all that I've interpreted is I haven't made it a priority yet. So, for me, my 45-minute mobility routine and then my hour-and-a-half workout that I do nearly every day, that's a priority. That's something I do every single day. That's for clarity of mind and for, your ability to handle stress too. For me, it's such a stress reduction, I view it as a necessity.
Right.
Like eating and drinking, it's my movement that I do each day is... It's part of I have it sectioned out in my day.
Yep.
Like it's there, and it's like you will not skip this. Like no matter what, hell or high water.
Need more of that.
Great. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's funny because when I would leave Studio 16, I would they start asking me like, why are you leaving? Like where are you going? Why can't you just work out here? And for me, that's my meditation.
Yep.
That is my meditation. When I leave, my headphones are on, tuned in, world out kind of thing, and I'm zoned in for, hour and a half, 2 hours. So
What's on your headphones?
for warm up, podcast. So 45 minutes is mobility with a podcast, whatever that one is for the day. And then as soon as it's whatever that mood is, and I could really insult people with what I listen to during my workouts. To tell you the truth, sometimes it's really heavy rock, and sometimes it's classic hip hop like. Dubs, whatever that is today, it's really loud and really heavy.
There you go.
Yeah, it's it's not like I'm listening to Mozart or anything like that. It's when I deadlift heavy, I need something to I'm sure you've read the studies as to the psychological and physical benefits of of sound.
Oh,
Yeah. I can't remember this. There was that study that where they fired up they had people like go 10% above their max 1 rep max for their bench press, and they fired a blank off right behind their head, and like all of them were able they talk about like these big deep yeah
So that's your training secret, then,
Yeah.
really.
Then we release a wild bear.
Yeah, you have to finish 10 reps at this weight before you get out of the gym. Yeah. So yeah, I hold my workouts to a very high regard. So that's my me time. That's me being selfish. Yeah, absolutely. And I fell into a trap early on in my training is I wanted to be busy. I wanted to make money. I wanted to just, volume. How many people can I see in a day? And there was a 2-month period about a year and a half into my training, which I accomplished it. I was training 58 hours a week, 58 hours with clients a week. I hadn't worked out in 2 months. I was programming, I was working and sleeping when I could, kind of thing. But and this was in a Tim Ferriss podcast, and he, as I've gotten older, I've redefined luxury, and luxury to me is feeling unrushed. And so that has really resonated with me because now for me at first it was just work, and I had no time to progress, to read, to apply, and now I've toned down my training significantly, but the quality of what I'm able to apply to my clients is leaps and bounds more, and I don't feeling unrushed.
Right.
I have a 3-hour pocket in the middle of my day where I can work out, eat comfortably, and read every single day. Every single day. That's true. Yeah. Which I've created for myself, though. I mean, that's something I had to, I had to get rid of certain clients to kind of, I said, this is me. This is nothing that you did, this is just what I need to do for myself. So.
Well, it probably prevents burnout at a certain pace. You probably can't sustain 58 hours.
And I think I've definitely hit burnout. I'm actually fairly convinced that I, hit that point where it was just exhaustion, and just cognitive cloudiness. Couldn't think, couldn't articulate. Like I would have that moment where I couldn't think of a word or a name all the time, and I was, drinking 8 cups of coffee a day, running on fumes, and I was like, no, this isn't health. This isn't health.
So one of the questions is, what information would you tell your 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever it applies to your former self? Would that be something that you would tell yourself, or would it be something else?
Yeah, more is not always better. I think that kind of sums it up in the realm of both training capacity. Me training clients and me training myself. For me at first, when I just wanted to get big, I got to 194, and I felt, I play soccer, I ride, I play volleyball, I like riding my road bike. There's a certain movements that I really enjoy, and I felt bulky. And I got up to 193 points something or other, and I hover at 177, 178, 180, give or take. But I just wanted to get big. And so, and then that applying that more is not always better, or less is more kind of thing. And then that same applies for my training for my individuals. Just because I don't have a full day worth of clients doesn't mean I'm losing out on anything. I'm progressing somewhere else. So I wish I could tell myself 5 years ago. I've been out of college for 5 years this May. And, if I can go back to my, my first year self into the training world, tone it back, give yourself the you time that you need. So mentally and physically, it's only going to benefit you in the long run. So
Nice.
Get them all?
Yeah, I think we pretty much hit everything. So, kind of in closing, anything you want to plug, or where can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
So you can find me online on Facebook. It's just Harrison Pollack, personal trainer, nutrition coach, and I try to interact with people on a regular basis and give little bits of insight. It's not anything. It's not like burn today, better tomorrow, or anything like It's not like cliches. I try to avoid the cliches to the best of my ability. And actually write some insight as to what the current research is and what I'm looking into, and giving my feedback on certain things to the point where it's I try to keep it engaging and minimally intrusive as the cliche fitness professional. So you can find me there. I've kind of started on Instagram, but I won't worry about that. For the next couple of months, I'll be at Studio 16, but then I'll be transitioning to a new studio, which is going to be on the north end of town, Caledonia Street, and there'll be more to come about the specifics on that. To come, it'll be a boutique cycling studio, and I'll have my own training space there to run, clinics and training and stuff like that. To the point where I'll still be able to operate training, and then also get into the cycling community as well. So I'm amidst a transition, but more to come on that. So and I'll update that on my personal training page as well. So
Very cool.
easy as that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harrison.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Clinically Pressed. Go to clinicallypressed.com for full show notes and links to everything that we covered in this episode. While you're there, you'll have full access to all our episodes, insights, and shorts. You can find Clinically Pressed on YouTube or any podcast outlet that you use. If you could give us a rating, thumbs up, or a review on how we're doing, we would greatly appreciate it and heard it helps out quite a bit. To get more free content delivered straight to your inbox, sign up for the Total Athletic Therapy newsletter at totalathletictherapy.com or clinicallypressed.com. You'll get direct links to all the new Clinically Pressed episodes, reviews on some of the latest research in health and performance, and links to related podcasts and other items meant to help you make the complicated simple and optimize performance. Thank you for listening, and see you next episode.